All right. So for my last class, the recap we stopped at objects, right? We mentioned about accessing objects using the dot notation. Let me increase the font a little. I mentioned using accessing the properties of an object using dot notation. Then we talked about loops, and I believe we also talked about arrays and the array methods. Okay, so today we'll be looking at functions, right? We'll look at functions, we'll look at classes, and then we move over to DOM manipulation. Then after that, we can start building real things, right? So function. So functions are functions classes are special kind of objects. Functions, classes, and arrays and maps and the other way. They're object types. But functions and classes specifically are special kind of objects that does more than just being objects. If you check Google for a definition, functions in JavaScript. JavaScript functions. JavaScript function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task. A JavaScript function is a thing when something invokes it or calls it. So I said they're kind of like an object. It might not really make so much sense at this point, but uh, just have to say that, and then we'll go on with the regular definition of what a function is. So, is a block of code designed to perform a particular task, basically. So, what it means is when we come to our code, if you notice, we've been doing a whole lot of things inside these files since we started this class. We've been calculating age, we've been doing objects, we've been doing blah blah blah, a whole lot of things, arrays and the rest. All of these things are happening in one file. There is no clear distinction between each of them. What it means is when we run this file, we execute this code, it's going to run everything from A to Z. Now we can group all of this inside a function. That function is like an action. You have a function with a code block, and you have the things you want it to do inside it, the function. So that when you call that function or invoke that function, that is the only time that thing happens. Alright? So how do we declare functions in JavaScript? So in JavaScript we have a couple of different type of functions, and then we also have different types of function notations. So another assignment, go and do some research on the different kind of functions we have in JavaScript. Alright? But then I'll take you through the type of notations, function notations in JavaScript. So we have the regular function notation. Okay, let me have another um, functions. .js. Alright, so we have the regular functions. I don't know what they call that, but I think that's the normal function, like declaring a function with the function keyword. We have the arrow function or fat arrow function. So I think those are like the two function notations. So let's say I want to declare a function, I can say function, the name of the function. Alright, so function, the name of the function, then an optional parameter. So the function can have a parameter or not. So this is how we declare functions in JavaScript. Function, my function, I promise to be using camel case. My function, then this guy, and then this code block to specify the code block. Alright, and then we specify the action things that we want to happen here. Another notation will be using the arrow notation, that's creating function arrow functions. So we also have another way we do it in ESCs. You can say const my function equals this. Yeah, this works too. Sorry. Yeah. And then so this is actually what we call the arrow function or nameless function. So you can have an arrow function and you don't need to name it, unlike this guy where we must name the function. So now we can have an arrow function basically just like an arrow function without assigning it to a variable like we did. Just like we have this guy, it wasn't assigned to a variable. But when we need to have a name, give it a name, then we must assign it to a variable. There are a couple of differences between these two guys, and sometimes if you want to write cleaner code, you might have to use the arrow function if you want to write a cleaner code or a shorter code, depending on the usage. So basically, as we're going on, I'll be showing you places you might have to where it's preferable to use one. But then there are a couple of differences between them. You can do a research on the differences between arrow functions and regular functions. It's just a click away. Differences between arrow functions and regular functions in JS. So with this you can get all the differences, but there's one particular one I want to mention: the way they handle the this objects. So that's the one I want to talk about. Yeah, so arrow functions do not create their own this binding. In normal function, a this variable is created with which references the objects that call them. I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, I'll try to explain a little. But if it makes sense, it's fine. If it doesn't make sense, it's fine too, because you see this guy, this guy is one concept in OOP that if you don't really know much about OOP, you find it difficult to understand. So you can check out those differences, but I'll talk about a little about this guy. So arrow functions do not create their own this binding. So in normal function, this variable is created which references the object that call them. As you can see, the blah 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 blah. The this in the print method points to object, which is the object that calls the method. There's another example. Alright, so let's look at the example they gave you. This is a normal function, this is a regular function. So if you have, and this function is a property, you know, objects do not just have properties, they can also have functions as a property. So when we have a function inside an object, we call that function method. That's basically the difference between a method and a function. They're almost the same thing. The only difference is method, functions inside an object is referred to as method. So you say the object has a method called blah 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 print. Now, what are we saying? We are saying that this print object, this print function inside this object, when you console log this and then you do object.print, that's making reference to this function. This instance created is making reference to the object that's called that function. But if it's an arrow function, it won't be making instance to this guy. Let's pick this thing. All right, let's take it to our code so we understand it better. So let's leave all of these guys, and then so this will print. So let's link this function to our HTML. Recap. So instead of recap.js, I'm doing function.js. All right, and then let's go live. Look at the console. My function is already declared though, so I declared those guys multiple times. Let me comment them out. All right, so notice that when we console logged this keyword inside this object, it made reference to the object that's calling it. Now let's assume we use an arrow function here. It would have looked like this, and then we save and we go again. Now look at the guy it's making reference to. Is making reference to the global object, which is the window object. Now the excuse me, the regular function creates a this instance of its own, which is the this instance of the object calling it, while the arrow function makes reference, it doesn't create a this instance of its own, it makes reference to the object housing it. The object is inside. In this case now, this is like the global scope, and at the global scope we have the Windows object. So everything at the global scope is inside this window object, which is how we console log this guy. Is logging our window object. I hope it made sense. If it didn't make sense, it's fine. When we start using any of this and then we are doing this and it's giving us the wrong guy or it's giving us undefined, then we'll come back to this. It probably would make sense by that time. Did it make sense in any way? Did it make sense in any way?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It might make sense to Arinze. Did it make sense to any other person? Alright, it's fine. It's actually fine if it doesn't make sense, really, guys. It's a lot. Okay, so let's take this. So it took me a while though to understand the concept of this, actually, because it can be confusing. It can be confusing, and I think the fact that I started with C# helped me better because. Yes, I'm recording. That's what I confirmed too. I'm recording. So luckily we'll have today's class available after the class, unlike what we did the last time. Thank you. I think that was Bamidele. Okay, Akindele. Thank you, Akindele. Let's move on. So if this doesn't make sense, it's fine. Forget about it. Forget that I talked about it. I just wanted to talk about it. But you can check out the differences between these two. But the major difference is this. I'll take this out. The major difference, or at least for what we can see, not see their functionality, is the way they are written. So arrow functions can be nameless. So if you actually need a very short code, in fact, let me even shock you. This is also arrow function. You won't believe it, but that's also arrow function. So you can, if you have just a single line of code, let's say you want to do console.log this, console.log hello, then this is fine. It's a valid code. You can even go as far as removing this, depending on where you're using it. So let's say you're using it inside a callback. You're supposed to provide inside a callback, and the callback is taking only one parameter. You can just put the name of the parameter and remove the curly brace. So it makes it far easier. Unlike this guy, you must have this the whole of this function, the name of the function, the parentheses, and the rest, right? So I'm going to stick to using this guy for consistency, and then maybe use this guy when I want to put functions as callbacks, or when I want to write a shorter code. So for consistency, we are going to stick with our regular function. So I'll comment this guy out and everything is fine. Now, functions, right? We say functions can take parameters optionally here. Yeah, Arinze.
But the regular function,
Yeah.
I think if it's in object, if you want to access it, you can still use object dot the property, like
The name of the function,
the
right?
yeah, the property of the function.
Yeah, fine. That's how you access it. That's how you access it.
Okay.
I think maybe something is you're trying to like wrap your head around something, but that's how you access it. Yeah, if I understand what we're asking. So
For example,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
interrupting. For example, what you have now,
mm-hmm,
if it was the normal function, like not arrow function,
mm-hmm.
if I still want to access the value, which is console.log this, I can still make use of object.print. Then it works.
Say again. Let me understand.
Like if I have the normal function,
Yeah,
not arrow function now,
yeah.
if I want to access the value, I can still make use of object.print.
That's if the function is inside an object, right?
Yes.
Exactly, exactly. Just like this.
So it's not just applicable to arrow
No,
function.
no, 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 no. The reason we are doing that, notice, if you want to change this to a named function, we'll say function, sorry, function, um, sorry, let me remove this arrow guy. All right. I think this makes more sense. We can still do this dot this. Do you understand?
Okay.
So these guys, in terms of how you access it inside the object, is the same thing. Where their major difference is how they handle this and how they are being written. So there are a couple of other differences that are really not major, but you can go through them. But the major, excuse me, the major difference, sorry guys, the major difference is on how they handle this guy, this instance. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering what is this guy saying. I wonder like that too. See this guy, one hell of a guy to understand. So when we get deeper, I'll come back to it. It will make more sense, especially when we start talking of classes or start actually using classes. So aside how they handle this and how they are written, every other difference to me is minor. Those are the two major differences, but you can check them out. So every other thing, they work almost like the same. Nothing else. Just how they handle their this instance that differentiates them. So give me a sec. Let me use my
Power on. Enter aux in playing.
So that's that for that. Now, why do we need functions? Let's say we want to write a program that's supposed to calculate someone's age and then calculate their date of birth, their results, do a lot of things, and then give us the results. We could do all of those on our one file, but then we can put it in functions to make it cleaner, so that when we want to do something, we'll call them. And then one important reason why we need functions, it helps us achieve two things: code reusability and separation of concerns. Code reusability. I hope I spelled that correctly. I didn't, obviously. So let me try reusability, okay? And separation of concerns. Separation of concern. These two things are very important. So very if you want to write a clean code. So you want to write a code that you can reuse in many places, that is not fixed to a particular thing. And if you don't use functions and you're writing everything in one line, there's no how you can reuse it, because your code is just solving one problem, solving multiple problems. But when you use functions, you can have one that say calculate age, the other one is saying calculate score or average, the other one is saying grades, and the rest. All right. So when you now do that, it's able to write those codes, make them reusable, and then you are separating concerns. Everything is doing just what it wants, is supposed to do. Or okay, let me, instead of this separation of concern, let me say single responsibility. So everything is doing just one thing. You don't have your code doing a whole lot of things. Single responsibility. Yeah. So these are the two major reasons why I think we need functions. So let's say we want to have a function that says, hello, this is my function. So I write all my codes. Instead of writing all our codes the way we used to do it before, now we're writing inside a function. So I'm gonna do this, yeah, and then I say console.log hello, this is a function, alright, and I save. Initially, when we do things and save, we come to our console and we can see it, right? Are we together? Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Alright. So when we do things initially, we come to this place and we see it on the console. But for some reasons, we are not seeing it anymore. Reason is, functions do not perform their tasks until they are called, except if it's a kind of function. I told you there are different types of function. I only mentioned types of functions based on the notation, how it's been, the function notation used in creating it. But there are different kind of functions, and there's one called I think um, I yeah, I think this is it. Immediately invoked function. I can't remember the name of the other one. Immediately invoked function. JavaScript. IFI, yeah. Immediately invoked function expression, yeah. Yeah. Immediately invoked function expression. So it's double IFE, not double E, not double F. I if. So immediately invoke function expression. So these are like function expressions that call themselves. So if how do we hide this guy? So if you are using an IFE, you necessarily do not need to call it. You cannot even call it. It calls itself. So aside an IFE, I'll show you guys how to do it later on. Remind me. Aside an immediately invoked function expression, every other kind of function you must call it before it can execute. So if you want to call a function, all you need is to get the name of the function and put a parenthesis in front of it. Now if we go to our console, we're able to see that our console log because we've called the function. So this is how you call a function. I don't know if that makes sense. Write the name of the function, put a parenthesis to it, and you've called the function. All right. Now we can see our hello world. Hello, this is a function. Oh, this is a function. Yeah, bad English. So this is how we call a function. You can also make reference to a function. You are not calling it, you are only making reference. For instance, let's say we have a second function, a second prompt inside this object, and we say let's change this function to greet, or let's create another function. So let's create another function and say greeter. So this guy is just supposed to say console hi, good evening. Alright, this is what this guy is supposed to do. So anytime we call this guy, it will greet good evening. Alright, now we might decide not to call this guy, we just want to make a reference to it. So we'll say print, we are assigning you to a reference to this guy, this greeter. Now if I say object.print, I should get that guy saying hi, good evening. Alright, does it make sense? Who didn't understand what happened now?
Sorry, please come again.
Alright. So you can speak though if you don't have issues with your this thing, so that because if I hear this sound, I have to switch back to this place to see the message dropped. But if you're having issues with your audio, then it's fine. You can write a message. But if it's possible to speak, just unmute and talk. That's okay. So excuse me. We have a function. Remember I told you until you call functions, they do not perform the tasks inside them, right? Except they are IFE functions. Right? Now, you can also make references to function without necessarily calling them. When you write the name of a function without the parentheses, it will reference that function. What do I mean? We are saying print. We want to assign a value to you. Which value are we assigning to print? The name of the function. So we want to assign this function to print. What we're saying is print, anytime they call you, use this guy which is making reference to what? This one. So this is referencing a function, while putting parentheses in it is calling a function. Now, what is the difference? When you call a function and the function has a return value. Okay, sorry, before I go to the difference, do you now understand? The person that said he didn't understand what happened, do you now understand what I mean by referencing a function?
Yes, sir.
Alright. So what it means is this guy, when we call print is now making reference to this man. So that's why instead of print saying I don't know what greeter is, it's actually calling greeter. So we assign greeter to print and they call print. So indirectly calling greeter. So we are making reference to greeter anytime we call print. So this is referencing a function. All right. Now, functions can also have a return value. So if I explain return value, I can go back to explain the difference between calling and referencing, the second difference between calling and referencing a function. Functions can have an optional return value. If I hover over this guy, it's telling me that this guy is a function. The name is my function. You see this colon? This is a colon, right? This colon. Anything after this colon shows what this guy is returning, or the type. If it's a variable, it's the type. If it's a function, it's the type of the return value. Now, what are return values? Every function returns a value. When you do not specify the value is going to return, it's going to return this special kind of value called void. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now void means I'm not returning anything. It's a data type though, but it means nothing too, just like null. It means I'm not returning anything. So because I didn't specify what these guys should return, they're not returning anything. They're just there, right? Now I can decide to do some things and then I say, once you are done, return that thing. So let's say instead of doing console.log, I say const greeting equals this guy. Alright, and I say return, you return a value with the return keyword, return greeting. Now when I call this guy, let's assume I'm also still console logging. So let me still leave the console login, because, and then return a value. So when I call this guy, it will do whatever you ask it to do, and then return the value you ask it to return. In this case, this guy, greeting. All right. Now, because this guy has a return value, when we make reference to it here and call it print, is now going to have another value. Now listen. Do we understand the concept of the return value? Let me show us. Let me show us. I know it's becoming like a spaghetti, right? It's becoming a spaghetti bowl. It's fine. Now, let me call this greeter outside this object, the way we call this man. So this is actually possible. I think this is how a lot of people write it. But for some reasons, personally, I prefer giving this space. I don't know why. Just that it looks better to me that way. You mustn't do it. A whole lot of people just write it together this way. So that's fine too. Now let me call this greeter here. Let me say console.log greeter, and I call it. There's nobody here that doesn't understand this. I'm calling greeter and I say console log whatever greeter is. I save. I go to my guy here. So a lot of things are logging. So let's take off this guy. So now we are calling greeter. And what did greeter do? It's logged. Remember we did console.log inside here. So he logged the first one. Hi, good evening. But then we'll have a second one at line 13. Where is it coming from? This is line 13. It's coming from calling this guy. So when we call this guy, it returns this value. We can actually assign it to a variable. So the return value is the value that's being returned when you call a function. If you don't specify it, it will return void. So let me say const value equals calling greeter. Now if we check this guy, it's going to be string. Look at the value is returning string because greeter is returning a string. If I hover over greeter, we are now going to have string, no longer void. If I stop returning something, it's going to switch to void. And this guy will probably be void too. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Amachi, does it make sense?
No, sir.
Ah, yeah, I was expecting to hear, but I know you're the one that said it knows at the first time. Now, which part of this doesn't make sense?
It's the last part about void and all.
The part that has to do with returning value.
Yes,
You understand how you call a function and how you make reference to a function, right?
yes, I understand that.
All right. Now, when you call a function, so guys, give me a sec, really. Give me a sec. Let me turn on the gen. So, as I was saying, as I was saying, um, you understand the difference between calling a function and making reference to a function, right? All right. So now, when you did you say anything? Helamachi, did you say anything? I can't really hear you. Is it only me? Like your voice is kind of this.
I do not say anything.
Okay. Try and increase to because it seems. Alright. So when you make reference to a function, it doesn't return a value. But when you call a function, it returns the value if you specify the return value. If not, it will return void. Now, you can do all the things you want to do in a function, and then at the end of the function, make sure the return this thing is the last keyword. At the end of the function, you return a value. Anything you have here won't work. Whatever happens here behind the return value is unreachable. The code can never execute. So make sure return is the last thing. Alright. Now when you return any value in a function, it means you are telling that function whenever they call you, return that value. So we created a variable called greeting. We signed this greeting to it. We are saying, so we could actually do this. So instead of having repeating this, we say greeting. So you are saying console log greeting and then return greeting too. And if we call greeter here, it's going to return greeting. Because we know it's returning a value, we assign that value to this guy. And if you console log that value, we'll get this thing logged here and also logged here. Does it make sense? Just like this. Does it make sense, Amarachi?
No, sir.
Which
Okay.
yeah.
This where I stopped understanding.
Alright.
Like after you return the greeting, then that's when I stopped understanding. That const value equals greater.
So
Why
this
why are we
is
using that one?
this is calling a function, is it not?
Yes.
Now, if we are calling a
Okay.
function that doesn't return anything, we don't care about the return value because it's void, right? Like this guy,
Yeah.
it's void. We don't care,
Yes.
right? Now, what if we are calling a function? Let's say we have a function that calculates
Yes.
student score. You want it whenever the function is done calculating, return the result of the score, right? So you want to have access to
Yeah.
what's the value of the calculation. In that case, you return the value of the calculation, is it not? Now, when
Yes.
you return it, you are likely going to assign it to a variable or use it for something, right?
Mm.
That is what we
Yeah.
did there.
Right.
So because we know this guy is returning a value, we want to accept that value using this variable const value equals greater. So greater, whatever you return, assign it to this man.
Okay.
So this is as good as saying const
Okay.
value equals this. Am I still speaking French?
No, no, I understand now.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So that's making references to a function and calling a function. When you call a function, it returns the return value. If you make reference to a function, literally it just assigns that function to the place you are referencing it. So whenever you make reference to it, it's like just like we are calling print. Instead of print doing something, print is looking for where this guy is, which is here, and assuming the value of this guy. So it's going to take this guy and assign it to itself and behave like this guy. So that's making references. So it's literally like picking this function and dropping it here. That's what references does. But calling is, I don't want you here. Run wherever you are. Give me, whenever I call you here, run wherever you are. That's what calling a function is. And remember, I said a function can only return a value when it's called. If it's not called, it's not going to return a value. Does it make sense? Are we together, guys?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. So now let's do touch another thing in functions. Parameters. Functions can take parameters. Now this is another thing that confuses me a lot. Parameters and arguments. I use them interchangeably. A lot of people use them interchangeably, but they are different. So I'll try and know if I'll find out the difference and tell you. But if you use them interchangeably like me too, I'll forgive you. Everybody will forgive you anyway. So a function takes parameters, I assume. I'll confirm. And then when you call it, you provide the arguments. So what I do sometimes, I'll tell you that a function takes argument, and when you call it, you provide the parameters. But I think it's the guy that goes in here is parameter, and the one that you provide when you call it is the arguments. So let's just confirm. I always miss those things of function parameter and arguments. Alright. I always miss it up. So, difference between parameter and argument. Function parameter are the names listed in the function definition. Yeah, that's correct. So we are correct. The arguments are the real values passed to the function when you call them. Alright. So yeah, I think I'm correct, but I just keep that in it. Now when we call a function, we can provide parameters here. What are the parameters supposed to do? They're like variables. We don't know what the value is, but we are saying whenever you call this function, provide those values. For instance, we have a greeter function. This our greeter function is supposed to greet somebody. We don't know what the name of the person is because you can use this greeter. Remember, I said one good reason why we use function is code reusability. So let's say you are greeting in a lot of places in your code, and you don't just want to do the implementation all over. You just want to have one function that greets, and then any name they provide to the function, it greets that name. So let's say we'll have a parameter here called name. So instead of saying hi, good morning, we can now say hi, name. All right. Good morning. So this is supposed to be a plus 2. I'm supposed to take out one of these. Who doesn't understand this thing? Just here. Who doesn't understand it? Everybody does, right? So what this thing does is it creates a parameter which functions like a variable too here. And what is that parameter doing? It's accepting value for name. We don't know what name is. What it means is whenever you call greeter, provide name here. So let's say name is Amarachi. Amarachi, yeah. So if I save this thing now, it's going, instead of saying hi, good evening, it's going to say hi, Amarachi, good evening. Hi, Amarachi, good evening. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. So now, Parameters are things we use to like kind of like a variable or variables we use to accept values at the point where we call the function. All right. Now a function can have many parameters, plenty, really. Name, age, height, etc. All you need to do is when you call it, you provide all of them. If you don't provide it, it's going to be undefined. So let's say we take out Amarachi here and we call this function. It's going to probably give us high undefined. Yeah, high undefined. Good evening. Because it is what? Undefined. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if because JavaScript actually allows us to do a lot of things, it will just assign undefined to it. But if you are using TypeScript or any language that's not dynamically typed, it's going to throw an error here to tell us that we've not provided the arguments required. So at this point, these guys are called parameters, but at the point where you provide them, they are called arguments. All right. So let's say we provide age. Amarachi is 35 years. Okay, age is to be a number, right? And her height is let's say she's 5 feet, right? Yeah. Now, hi Amarachi, good evening. What else do we tell Amarachi? You are okay. So let me do interpolation. Let's make this thing cleaner. Let's make it cleaner. And take out all of these guys. So hi, and then name, right? Hi space name. Good evening. You are age, years old, and your height is heights. I hope I got that correctly. Yeah. Oh, I used the wrong guy. I'm sure we all understand this. If you don't understand anything, come our attention. So now we'll check this guy. He said, "Hi, Amarachi." So let me remove this other console log. It's causing some confusion. Hi, Amarachi. Good evening. You are 35 years old and your height is 5 feet. Why? Because we provided all of those here. So functions can be so plenty. Sorry, the parameters can be numerous, but try as much as possible to keep it as simple as you can. Once you start doing many things inside a function, that's when you start having plenty lines of code and plenty parameters. If you keep it simple and make sure it's a single responsibility, it's not going to be so big, but it can contain as plenty as possible. All right. So that's that for parameters. Does it make sense? What I explained, did it make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
No questions, right? Now, so let's do. In our last class, one of our classes we did. We worked on a logic that will calculate someone's age, right? Right. Right. So let's say we want to calculate someone's age. You give them the year of birth and the current dates, and then okay, let's say you give them the year of birth, and then we expect this function to calculate their age. So let's come down here. Calculate a person's age, right? Right. Okay, now let's do something funny. Let's move this guy down. So let's create a person object because we want to calculate a person's name. So let's create a person object. Const person now instead of object. Name Amarachi. Age, say she's 35. Then we'll have calculate age. Let's short. Oh yeah, let's complete it. Calculate age. Now we can use our regular function here, or we can use arrow function. So this is one case where we really don't need to name it. So let's use a name function, which is arrow function. So if I'm causing confusion with that, please let me know. If I'm causing confusion with switching between name function and arrow function, let me know, so I can just stick to one. But I felt like we don't need to put the whole function and then the name here because we really don't need it. So why should I put it if I don't need it? Now, this function is going to take Amarachi's age. Sorry, year of birth. Year. Let's call it YOB. Year of birth. And somehow calculate their age. How do we get the age? We do the current year minus what? The year of birth. So let's say const current year. Just because we don't want them to provide current year, we can always get it from JavaScript. Equals new date. Using the date class. Dot get year. Yeah. Get full year. So this guy is going to return the current year for us. The new date creates gives us the current date. So let me just see this guy. He gives us the current an object, a date object. So let me just do console.log that guy so you see what it gives us. So console log dates. If we check it out, see what's giving us a date object. Saturday, May 13, blah blah blah. Now, at every instance, it's always going to give you the current date. That's why it's showing us Saturday, May 13, 2023. The time 8:11 is GMT +1 because we're in Nigeria, West African Standard Time. Alright. Now, this thing is displaying as a string, but at the end of the day, it's really an object, not a string. But because we are console logging, it's converting it to string or something that's readable. But this guy is returning an object. That's why I can do dot full year on it. So you can pick out a lot of things. You can pick out the year, you can pick out the day, the month, and a lot of things from the date object. So instead of doing this, let me even make it simpler. And I say const current. So we call that in timestamp sometimes. Timestamp. So run like because it takes like it picks a particular time. So let's just say timestamp, or let me say dates equals new dates, and then dates dot get full year. So if we don't only have full year as a properties of this object, we have a lot of things: get time, set full year, can even set the year, and also get hours, get millisecond, get minutes, months, and the whole of them. What I just want to do is to get the full year. So when I get the full year, I'm going to minus, so age const age is going to be equals current year minus year of birth. Then we can return age, right? Now when I do this, and then anytime I call calculate age, I provide this, it will give me the person's age. For instance, so don't mind all of these things. Then I have an extension that's tracking the beginning of a brace for me, a code block. So that's what's displayed. It's not part of the code. You can ignore it. So when I go outside of this place and I say um, const age equals person dot. Now, if you notice, when I did this guy dot, it showed me the properties of the class of the object, right? Likewise, this object we created ourselves too. When I do person dot, it's going to show me the properties. So at the end of the day, we'll have just three: the age, the calculate age, and the name. All right. So we say we're calling calculate age. What do we need to provide? The year of birth. So let's say Amachi was born 1980. If I console log age, which is this guy here. I hope I'm not console logging any other thing. If I console log this age here, it's going to calculate this age for us and display it, all things being equal. And it did for 3. Okay, so her marriage is no longer 35, she's now 43. That was so fast. So because this guy is a property in this object and it's taking this parameter, it helps us use this thing to calculate different people's age or Amarachi's age at varying year of birth. So let's say Amarachi's son house now tells us, okay, it's no longer 1980, it's 1990. We can get the age by just changing the year of birth without touching the logic. And it's switching to that 3. Does it make sense? Did I speak English?
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody that think I was speaking French or Chinese? Nobody. That means I was making sense. Alright, so let's go on. Now that is functions inside an object, and that is using parameters to provide value for a function. We use it to calculate this thing. So let's also do a function outside an object, right? Let's do this guy. Let's say function calc function sum. Sorry guys. Function sum equals so it's going to take two numbers, num1, num2. So const sum equals num1, so there shouldn't be a space here. Nobody corrected me. Num1 plus num2. Return what? Return what?
Sum.
Is it only Arinze that's paying
Sum.
attention?
Return some.
Arinze, Akindele, every other person is quiet. I hope you guys are following. So return sum. Alright? And then we'll call sum here. So let's say sum, just so we know when it's displaying sum for us. Alright? I'm just doing this so that we know what is displaying. We don't maybe miss it up if there's any other thing. Console log sum, then we call I didn't call it anyway. Now, because I didn't call it, it's only doing what? It's only doing what? What do I say happens to a function when you write the name and you don't call it?
You are referring to
Yeah?
is it be void?
So when you write the name of a function and you don't call it, you're only making reference to it.
Wow, it's okay.
Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
So because I didn't call this guy, it's only making reference to this function. It will be void when it doesn't have a return value. It has a return value, sum. Now, because I didn't call it, it's making reference. Now, notice what is logged on our console. The whole function. So making reference to a function is literally like copying that function, like carrying it and dumping it wherever it is. Bah. That's why when I logged it, it gave me back the whole function complete. Right? Now, let me call it. And then I'm getting NAN. What's ANN again? Who remind me? Not Akindele, not Ezenwa. Another person.
Not a number.
Not a number, yeah. So I'm getting not a number. Why am I getting not a number? Because I'm doing numeric operation here on two things that are not a number. Do you know what the value of this guy is? Who knows what the value of this guy, these two guys are?
We've not supplied argument yet, but we have parameters.
That means they are not defined yet, right? Right?
Yeah.
If I do console.log these guys, you see that they're actually undefined. Console.log num1, right? Num2. Undefined. So because we didn't provide the argument, they are undefined. So what this thing is doing is undefined plus undefined. Because we're trying to run numeric operator on two things that are not numbers, is returning an NaN, not a number. And that NaN is being assigned to sum, and sum is being returned. That's why we are getting NaN here. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Alright. So now let's do the right thing, right? Let's provide the two numbers, 23 plus 45. If we save and go back to these guys, this guy, we're going to have 68. Hopefully it's correct. Is it 68? Yeah, it is. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Assignment number one.
Number 2.
Have I given one before?
Yes, sir.
What's the first one?
Types of function.
No, that one is your research. If you don't do it, it's fine. You are cheating yourself. I won't ask for it. It's for you guys. It's like do a research on the types of function. All right. I have the higher order. We'll have the. Can I remember their names again? They always find a way to leave my head when I need to remember them. All right. So, but there are different types of functions. They immediately invoked functions. There are different types, and most times it's depending on the category you want to classify them. Like the one who did the arrow and the other one, we are classifying them by their function notation, how they are being declared in JavaScript. So we have some that are defining them by. Let me not go into the details. I can't even remember exactly again, but you can research that. It's very important you know them. All right. So back to my assignment I'm giving. Assignment number 1. We all know quadratic equation, right? Do we all know quadratic equation?
Yes.
All right. And then we all know the quadratic formula. I'm sure everybody here will have at some point done something that have to do with mathematics, right?
I don't know it.
Yeah. So
Yes, sir.
so let's browse for the quadratic formula. Jesus, so I'm doing quadratic formula. So this is the formula of what a quadratic equation looks like. Hold on. So now there is a formula you can use to calculate. So I think this might be a more difficult this thing for people that don't know what a quadratic equation is. So let me use something that everybody can relate to. Calculate simple interest. Where's the formula? Simple interest formula. Alright. So I think we all should know this one. Do we all know this one?
Yeah.
Or is it still complex? Where this is the interest, this is principal, then we'll have a constant, the interest rate, and the time in years. Is there anybody that have an issue with this?
Me, I'll prefer in place of that one. Let's just make it of 100%. Like principal times times triple that.
So, can you speak?
Formula of simple interest.
You said?
Yeah, let's make it of principal times time times rate over 100.
That's this one, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that's why I had to enter inside. So I think this is more this thing. So this is how you calculate simple interest. If you need to take note of this, take note of it. You need to screenshot it. Now, what I need you to do is to do this calculation inside a function so that when I call that function and provide it the principal, the rate, and the time, you don't need to know what it means. You don't need to understand it. It's fine if you don't understand it. All I just need you to do is when I call that function, say calculate simple interest, and I provide you the principal, the rate, and the time, let that function give me an accurate simple interest using this formula. Is the assignment straightforward?
Yes, sir.
Aside
Yes.
Arinza and Ami, is there another person that doesn't understand this assignment?
Please rephrase.
Alright. You are seeing this formula on the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, George, yeah. This formula on the screen is used in calculating simple interest. You need to provide a principal. So this principal is like the amount. I don't need to go into the details, but this principal is like an amount you are starting with. The rate of the interest, just know that that is rate. We don't want to go into statistics or mathematics. And this is time, a number. All I needed to do is to write a function where if I provided the principal, the rate, and the time, is going to give me the simple interest using this formula: principal times rate times time over 100. Does it make sense? Does it make sense?
Yes. Are we still using the conjunctive?
Are we doing what?
Are we still using the conjunctive?
If you want to do that one too, it's fine. You can do it. I'm just looking for something that will be simpler for us to understand. Because that quadratic formula has a lot of things, roots, blah 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 over this one, blah 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 this, blah that one. So I wanted to use something that will be easier to understand. Now pay attention. JavaScript obeys BODMAS. We all know what BODMAS is, right? Bracket of division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, right? Yeah. So JavaScript obeys BODMAS, and it starts execution from left to right. So if the two of them are on the same level, then it's going to execute the one he met first. So take that into consideration. Right? Right. So that's that for function. I don't think there's any other thing I've not mentioned in function, at least anything basic that I've not mentioned in function. Now let's do a combination. Let's say we have we want to have three functions, right? Okay, yeah, let me also mention something, right? Um, um, okay, I think that might be a bit advanced. Let's leave it for now. Let's leave it for now. So let's say we want to have a logic that will calculate a person's age, greet the person, say hi, blah blah blah, your name, your age is blah blah blah, and your average score for maybe the courses you did is blah blah blah. We want to do these three things, but we want to do separation of single responsibility so that let each one be doing just one thing. We already have calculate age, so let's pull it out from this guy so that we don't repeat it. We already know the logic. I'll comment this guy out. Also comment this guy out. So we have sum. We don't want to use sum. So let's have this calculate age. Because it's outside here, let's change it to function, right? Call it calc age. And then we remove this arrow. I just converted it to regular function. And then we also want to have the one that will calculate that will greet the person. So let's use that greeter function. Yeah. Let's bring it down. Oh, let's just make reference to it. We don't need to bring it down. Okay, but then it's complex. It has three things. So I'll comment it out and we'll do another one. Greeter, and then let's remove age and height. So let's remove this console.log becomes hi name, good evening. This is all we need. Hi name, good evening. And then what else do we say? We want to calculate average scores. Now I'm going to do something. I want to introduce another level of complexity, right? So please pay attention, because I want to do small magic. And sometimes if I'm doing magic, I can speak French, so pay attention and let me know when I'm speaking French. Then average score. Now we want to calculate the average score of that person, but we don't even know the number of exams or tests the person took. Maybe that person took 5, another person took 2, right? We want to be able to calculate the average, use the same function, calculate the average of all of them. But because we are not sure of the number of tests, we can't really specify, let's say test 1, all right, test 2, test 3. What if it's 5 tests, I will specify 3? What happens? Trouble. Because we now have 2 other ones that cannot be accommodated. What do you guys think we should do? I don't expect you to know. Maybe Arinze will have an idea of what to do. Arinze, what do you think we should do? I hope Arinze is still here.
I don't know for now.
So is there anybody that thinks there's something we can do to be able to handle any length or number of arguments or parameters? Sorry, I told you I keep interchanging them. So that if this is 5, it will calculate it. If it's 4, it will calculate it. If it's 0, fine. If it's 5, 10, fine. Does anybody know what we can do? Alright. So let's do something. I don't know what this guy will take. But whatever he's going to take, I want to use the spread operator and put it inside an array called args. I can call it test. There is an operator in JavaScript called spread. This guy, 1, 2, 3. So what that guy does is, he picks whatever the value is and put it inside an array. So let me say console.log test, and then I call this guy, and I provide 1, 3, 6, 2. Let's check our console. We have an array of 1, 3, 6, 2. Why? Because we told this man, see, we don't know the number of arguments we're expecting, the number of parameters we're expecting. But no matter what it is, pack all of them and spread it inside an array. If I remove 2, dynamically it will change to an array of 3 elements. 2 is gone. So that way this guy is able to handle any length of arguments. We don't really need to be specific and tell it, okay, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. Does it make sense? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, only use this guy when there is need to. If you know the number of parameters you're expecting, please name your parameters. Alright? But you know, in this case now, we don't even know the parameters we're expecting. So we could make this thing to be an array of tests, which is what I would have preferred if I'm the one doing it. Actually, I'll just make this an array of tests, so that this will now be this, so that at every point this guy knows what he's getting. Still the same thing. If I console log, we'll still get the same thing. The only difference is you must always provide an array. If I do this, I should have an issue. I have an issue. It's taking only the first one. And because I only ask this guy to take only one variable, one argument, it will ignore all of these guys. Does it make sense? I believe it does.
Yes, sir.
Alright. So let's go back to using this guy to calculate multiple distance. So I wouldn't use that spread operator, really. I wouldn't want to use it. Let's stick to using an array. So we assume this guy is an array of test scores. Alright? And then how do we calculate the average? Somebody tell me. Arinze, don't talk. How do we calculate the average? Assuming
Sum the courses and divide by the number of courses you have.
I said Arinze should not talk, and Arinze is talking. Arinze, be careful. So let's hear from somebody else. I'll call names though. Should I call names? Should I call names, or do I repeat the question? Arinze, for now, keep mute.
Yes, please repeat the question.
So Amarachi say I should repeat the question. Blessing, George, Bamidele. Bamidele I've not spoken since we started this class. I hope all is well, Bamidele. Blessing, George, Akindele, Bamidele, and who else? Yeah. Should I repeat the question? Because I need you guys to pay attention if I'm repeating it. I need your contributions too. They didn't say anything. Hopefully, they are listening to us. It's very likely.
Yes, please.
Alright. So you have an array of test scores. remember, array is a list, right? Right. You have an array of test scores, a list of test scores. How do you get the average? Average is everything, sum of everything over
Divide by
the
number.
number.
The number of
So,
subjects.
thank you. We all know what average is. So, how do I do it if this guy is a list of scores? I'm waiting, guys. If nobody gives me an answer, we'll use that as an assignment. If nobody gives me an answer, we'll make it an assignment.
Like the average.
This is a list of um, scores, numbers. How do I get the average?
eh, Is the summation divided by the values?
Summation
Like
of the
the one.
scores over the length of I don't they give a
Yeah,
score.
the length.
I don't they give a score. Summation of the scores over the number of items, right?
Yes.
That is how to do average. So tell me how to do it here. Tell me the code to write. I'm listening. I'm listening. How do I pick? How do I sum it? Okay, tell me how do I sum it? Const sum equals Tell me what to do. How do I get this sum?
First of all, we need to get the values now.
Thank you. So how do I get the
Huh?
values? Yeah, how do I get the values?
You assign a value to like it will be cons value equals to this. Cos value equals to this. You now sum it.
Const value equals this, this, this. Is it like this?
Not like that now. Like you know what I meant.
I don't know. That's what I'm
Like
asking. Yeah? No, say whatever is in your mind is fine. You probably might be correct and you don't know. Explain what you're saying. Let me know. Const value equals what? Yeah? This is what I'll be doing. It's like you people just mute and everybody is doing whatever is they want to do. This one don't catch you now. Blessing, stop talking. I'll start calling names. Bamidele.
okay.
Okay, Akindele, want to say something? Oh, she went mute again. Bamidele, Ami, George, Akindele. I'm waiting for you guys.
Okay.
Alright, Blessing is back, okay? Const value
So you
equals.
said we can use an array. We can use array, right?
This guy is an array. This guy you're seeing is an
Okay.
array. We want you to provide an array of scores here.
Okay. Then can we get some values inside an array?
Sure. If we call this guy here, if we call this guy, let's say average, average score equals, what we're going to provide it will be an array. Definitely. An array. So let's say average score. I'll call it. This is how you call it, right? I provided an array. So when we call it, we're going to provide this array. How do I pick out the values from this array and get the average? That's the question.
I don't know.
Who wants to try? Aside Arinze.
Sorry.
Who is talking? Akindele, yeah, go on. Alright. So Arinze,
Hello.
yeah, okay, Akindele, yeah, continue. Help us out, yeah.
So, like, I didn't hear what you said last, but from what I'm seeing, so let's say me, according to my own understanding, though.
Yeah,
So let
yeah.
me just try. So for that const value,
Mm-hmm.
or for that array that we have of, so it's going to be, let's say, we have like three array, some one, some two, some three. So this
You have
const
an array
value is
of
equal to
three
be
elements, not three array.
some one plus some, sorry, array of three elements, sorry.
Yeah.
It's going to be some one plus some two plus some three equal to
So where do we get that sum from? That's the question.
what?
Because I can write
And like
some
it's
1
just
plus some 2 plus some
yes,
3. Right? Where do we
plus
get this sum from?
yeah.
How do we get it? The value for some 1, some 2, and some 3. Now, assuming if I increase this to 4, does it mean you're going to increase to some 4? Remember, you don't know the length of the array. You don't know whether it's 5
Okay,
elements. You don't know whether it's 100 elements.
Mm.
If it's 100 elements, I'm sure you're ready to go up to 100. So how do we pick out the values no matter the length of the scores? That's the question. Arinze, help us out. Oh, hold on.
Actually, yeah, I've not come across this before, but I don't know what I have in my head if it's correct.
Okay, if you want to know what you have in your head is correct, then go on. Had it been you know the answer, I'll tell you to hold on so that you turn it up. I actually want to make this an assignment. Assignment 2. Assignment 2.
Is there a way we, can you hear me?
Yeah?
Is there a way we'll be able to make use of like for loop?
Like what?
Can we make use of loop?
Ah.
And if we cannot make use of loop, is there a built-in function that we can use to sum?
If you
for
want
the
to
length?
make use of loop, what is your mind saying? Let me pick on your brain now. What is your mind saying? Assuming you want to make use of loop.
We can say if we initialize, I don't know if it's correct. Like
Yeah, fine, go on.
if we set our I to be 0,
Mm-hmm.
then so is there no way we can iterate like for values in
Okay,
array?
I think Arinze has an idea, but he's struggling with picking it out exactly, like putting what is in his head into a code. But he has an idea of how it will work. So because of time, let me help out. I hope everybody's paying attention. So
Yes, sir.
see what I want you guys to do. Whenever you get a problem in programming is all about solving problems, literally. In fact, products in programming language are called solutions. That's why they will tell you Paystack is a payment solution. They will not tell you it's a payment application. Developers will tell you it's a payment solution. Which payment? Because programming is all about what? Solving problems. Now, when you have a problem to solve, like this one, the first thing that should come to your mind is forget that you are programming. As a human being, how can I solve this problem? Now, let's forget JavaScript. Akindele, as a human being, if I give you 4 numbers and say give me the sum, what will you do?
I will add it together and divide it by the
You add what
total number
together?
of the item.
Like break it down. Break it down. Tell me what steps you're going to
Like
take.
I will add the number together. Let's say we have 3, 2, 4, 5. So 3 plus 5 plus 6 like that divided by the total number of the item.
Thank you. That means first of all, this is what I meant by break it down. You go through the numbers, right? One after the other. Pick
Yes.
the numbers one after the other, and you're adding it. That's how you're going to do it as a human, bar. You pick the first one,
Yes, sir.
add. Pick the second one, add. Pick the third one, add. Why also keeping count of the number of numbers they have, right? The number of items, right?
Yes.
Now,
Yes,
when
sir.
you are done adding them, you go and catch that your number of items. Because when you pick the first one, it's okay. I have one item. You pick the second one. Now, let's assume you are not seeing this thing. Let's assume there is an invisible person somewhere giving you the numbers. You say, okay, give me the first one. They'll give you. You add. You say number one. Give me the second one. They give you add. You say number two. Give me the third one. They give you add. Say number three. Is that not how you're going to be doing it?
Yes.
Because in reality, you know, we are not seeing this. We are not seeing it at this point. We are not seeing it. I had to show you guys this to bring clarity, but in reality, we are not seeing it. So when you now get all those and you ask a person, give me the next number, they say no, that's the last one. It's okay. You now go and check where you are keeping count of the number of items. It's okay. It's only 4 items. How many was the sum? It's 50. How do I get the average? 50 over what? 4. Is that not how you are going to do it as a human being?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now that is what programming is all about. Look for a solution, the best solution as a human being. Automate it. Find a way to tell the computer to do it. And if you understand this logic, look for a solution as a human being. Find a way to tell the computer to do it. You can solve any problem. Any problem, no matter how complex it is. I could throw any problem at you and you solve it. Now, how do we look for a solution? Using this analogy I gave now. There is an invisible guy here. We don't know what this thing is. But whatever it is, we want to pick out all of them. And because it is an array, how do we pick out the values of an array? Using the index. But we don't know the length. So we do what? We loop through all of them. Whatever it is, loop through it. So because an invisible hand is giving us this guy, we just want to tell that guy, please keep giving us. So let's use any loop at all. I'm going to use for loop. I'm certain by now we all know how loops work. If you've not been practicing any of these things on your own and you expect me to come and repeat it every time we come into class, you are not helping yourself, you are not helping me either. So whenever I use for loop, I understand you. I assume you've already understood it because we've done it in class and you probably have practiced it, so I don't need to repeat it again or read the explanation again. So I'm going to use for loop, and I want to start counting from 0 to any length. Now, because we don't know what this score, the length of this score, we're just going to say count from 0 to the length of the score. Score. When we pick out any one, we use the index to pick it out. So if it's 1 or 0 or whatever, and we assign it to score. Who doesn't understand this thing? If you don't understand this thing, let me know. Everybody understands it. Good. Now I've picked out the score. So this thing is going to loop, even if it's 100 times, 100 scores, it's going to loop 100 times. Because I said, as long as remember we are counting from 0. As long as I is less than the length of the array, keep looping. So with the array is 100, it's going to loop 100 times, starting from 0. So it's going to move from 0 to 99. If it's 10, it's going to move from 0 to 9. If it's 15, it's going to move from 0 to 14. Alright? Now, as you are looping, what do you want to pick out, Akindele?
Pick out, like, I don't get your question, sir.
Okay, I gave an analogy of how we will solve this as a human being. Now that is what we're doing. Remember, we use loops for repetition. If we were to be a human being, an invisible hand is giving us the scores. We are going to be repeating that action. Get the scores, keep track of the number of scores we've collected, keep track of the sum, go back again and do it until the person tells us we've run out of scores, right?
Yes, sir.
So, what are we supposed to pick out now in this our loop?
And
Huh?
the sum of all
We've picked out the
the
score,
looping.
right? We picked out the
Yes, sir.
score. We also need to pick out what? Keep track of the sum. Now, we are going to be adding to what we have already. We don't want to do a new, we don't want to at each point assign sum to the new number. To achieve that, we will need to take sum out of this loop. Because if it's inside this loop, what it means anytime it comes back, it's going to reassign to sum. We don't want to reassign, we want to sum. So we're going to say let sum, because we want to keep accumulating the values. We can't use let const. We use let. So let sum equals what? 0. Who doesn't understand this? And then we'll come here and say sum equals whatever is in sum plus score. Who doesn't understand this? Because we can shorten this, we can actually say sum plus equals score.
Score.
Now we're able to keep track of the score and we're able to keep track of the sum. We necessarily do not need the score. What we need is to keep track of the length, the number of items. So we can also do this. Or we can just say count. Whenever you do count, you say count equals count plus 1. Because we can shorten this thing, we can say count plus plus. It's the same thing. Who doesn't understand? If you don't understand, let me know. It makes sense, right? Now, we are keeping track of what counts. By the time this loop is yeah, Rinze, I almost know what you want to say, but say it.
Okay, sorry. The plus equal to
Yeah? You don't understand the
sum
plus
plus
equals to?
plus.
You don't understand the sum plus equals to?
Now, I mean, you should check.
Oh, it's true. I was saying
You
plus.
put equal to plus.
I'm
instead of
saying.
plus equal to score.
Yeah. Thank you. I was saying another thing and writing another thing entirely. Alright. So I actually thought Arinze wanted to point out something else. So at this point, nobody have noticed that, so I'll still continue. So we've kept track of the sum. We've kept track of. Did someone say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did he say?
I thought that plus plus was supposed to be +1.
Yes, you can do plus equals 1. It works.
No, not that one. Like the way you put the I plus plus.
Plus 1 like this, or plus
Yeah.
plus 1
No, like
plus 1.
plus plus. I thought it was supposed to add 1 to the value of whatever you.
Yes, that's what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, is incrementing. That's what we call it. We call it increment operator. So this is increment
Okay.
and the other one is decrement,
So
minus minus. Yeah,
what if the next score is not +1 of the I?
it's always going to be plus 1. Remember, what we are incrementing
Okay, the
is
position.
counts. So what you're saying is for every iteration, for every repetition, for every loop, keep count of the number. Like, because these loops are picking out numbers. So you say when you pick out number, say 1, pick out another one, say 2, pick out another one, say 3. So you're keeping track of the number of times you have to go and pick out number. Does it make sense? Yeah, Arinze, yeah.
It
Okay, hold
makes
on,
sense
Arinze.
if
Let's
it's
let's
the
let me
value
get
of.
what Ami is trying to say. You say
It makes sense if it is just the position that it applies to, but if it's a value, what if one is 2, the other one will be 24?
so. It's not looking at the value. Notice what he's picking at. Score is what's holding the value,
Okay.
right? It's score that's holding the value. This man doesn't even care about the value. All he's saying is no matter the value you pick, add 1 to my count. Does it make sense, Ama? Amashi, does it make sense?
Yes,
Alright.
it does.
Alright. So now Arinze, yeah?
Sir, please, I don't know if it will be possible this way. Like, can we say test scores dot length? That's divided by test scores
Yeah.
dot length.
I thought that's what I thought you wanted to point out initially. Because with that we don't need to do this second step. We don't need to do the second step with that. Alright? But we'll do this and then we'll go back and refactor. So there's something called refactoring. You get it working, then go back and make it look linear and more optimized. Alright? So let's continue with this. Then we'll go back. I thought that was why you raised your hand the first time. So we keep count of the track of the counts. Those are the two things we would have done if we were to be a real human being calculating. So by the time is done with this repetition, we now have these two things. Then we can return sum divided by average. Okay, sorry, counts. That will give us average. Who doesn't understand what happened? I don't understand. Let me know. Who doesn't understand? We all understand, right? All right.
Yes, sir.
So this works. Now, this is what Arinze was suggesting. Arinze is saying this count is unnecessary because we can always get the length of the array. So if we know the length of the array, there's no point keeping count for each iteration. Just say over test scores the length. That's what Arinze is saying. And I agree with him. Because the length of the array is telling us the number of items inside the array. So there's no point keeping track of number of items inside the array again. Alright? So does this make sense too?
Yes, sir.
Alright. So now let's bring back this our person object again. In this time around, we'll call it student objects. At each point, I'm introducing one layer of complexity. Student objects. Now, student has a name. Students have a year of birth. Yeah, let's call it YOB. And it's 1994. Now, student has scores for their test. And it's going to be an array of 24, 45, 72, 90, 12. All right, and then student has a method that says I'm looking for the best name to call it. Student dot evaluates. Pay attention to the names and giving the methods. Greeter. I could actually call this greet. Actually, I'll call this calculate average. Some works. So as much as possible, try to give your methods or your functions a verb, a name that's like a verb. Verb is a doing word, right? Right?
To do what? Yes, sir.
Yeah. So try to make it look like something that's like a verb, so that when you say student dot evaluate score or student dot evaluate whatever, it makes sense. Student dot analyze, it shows that that's not a property, it's an action. Functions carry out action, so try to make their names depict what they do. So that's why I'm using this evaluate. And what is evaluate going to be doing? Evaluate is going to have a function. I'm chaining a lot of things here now. If it doesn't make sense, let me know. Evaluate is going to be a function that will return analysis. And okay, let's say results. Let's just say results. And what will be the result? Results equals, what will be our result? We want to calculate the age, the average score, and also greet the guy. So this our results is going to be making reference to a function. Okay, this is already a function, yeah. So evaluate is a function. So our result is going to call greet. So let's say cons greeting, because we want to greet the person, equals, so cons greeting equals, we call greeter. If you don't understand what I'm saying, let me know. We call greeter, and what is greeter? It's a name. Greeting. It's a name. All right, so I'm going to make this mistake. I will continue. Hopefully, I'll see a place to correct it. And then the next one is going to be the age. So calculate age. We're supposed to provide year of birth, right? We say year of birth. All right. And then the next one is average score. So we say const average score equals average score, and then we provide what? Score. Who doesn't understand? If we're done with this example, we'll call it a day. We're supposed to stop by 9. This is 7 minutes past 9.
Sorry, I did not understand from that evaluate.
And you kept
That
quiet since.
evaluate. I'm waiting for you to ask
No,
for the person that did not understand.
I asked like 2 or 3 times, or at least 2 times. Maybe you didn't hear when I asked. So whenever you don't understand something and I'm going further, just bring my attention back to it. I think it makes more sense than completing it and then going over it again. So we want to have a method inside our student object that will be evaluating the details of these students. So that anytime they give us a student object, we call the evaluate method inside it. It will give us all of this. We don't need to pick it out. We want to have that thing inside the student itself. I think they call it encapsulation, if I'm correct. Where you have the things working on data inside the object itself. Now, for us to analyze all of these guys, we'll have a method here that's supposed to analyze it. Because we don't really need a name function, we decided to use an arrow function. What is that arrow function doing? It wants to do the analysis and return the results. So let's call it analysis again. Analysis. Why? And return the result of the analysis. What is the analysis? He wants to greet the person, generate a greeting text for the person. So if you generate a greeting for the person, let me even rename all of these guys. Generate greeting. Generate greeting. So this makes more sense this way. So generate greeting. I don't know why I'm typing nonsense. Calculate average score. So we can say calc average score. And then what's the other guy? Where's the other guy? Calc age. So calc age is fine. So we'll call this generate greeting. I will call this calc average score. These are the three analyses we want to do. So when we do it, I will get the answer. Then we can, the answers are going to be getting, we can display it or return it. So we can say const analysis. This guy is going to give us a greeting. Hi, the name we provided. So we can say equals greeting. Let me make it a string using interpolation. I'll pick out this guy. Greeting. So hi, blah blah blah. Your age is. If you don't understand, let me know. Your age is age. This age here. I've been waiting for you guys to tell me to give you access to this our assignment, this our classwork. Nobody have asked for it. What is telling me is that probably you guys are not practicing whatever it is we are doing in class. And then your average score is average this guy. Hold on. This guy. Average score. So the greeting, your age is age and your average score is average score. This makes sense. What it means is whenever we call this evaluate, it's going to return this analysis for us. Who doesn't understand it up to this point? It's becoming a bit complex, I know. In real life, this is not complex yet. Programming is not for the weak. But once you understand it, you know it's for the lazy. Maybe laziness is good, but weakness is not. I don't know. So who doesn't understand? Do we all understand?
Yes, and I understand.
Everybody
you.
understands, right? Alright. So now, alright. Arinze, you want to say something? Or you understand?
Actually, I have something to say or ask.
Alright, ask. We're listening. Just keep it brief so that we'll close on time.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah?
I'm trying to look at the difference between function with parameters and like the ones without parameters. From what I learned before, like if I'm not using parameter, then sorry, sorry. Like the return statement helps us get a value out of the function. Like if there's a value from that function we want to use elsewhere. So that's what return statement helps us with.
Mm-hmm.
Then parameter puts value of course inside the what
Function.
I'm now thinking, is it now right for us to be having parameters, then we are still using the return statement?
Alright. I'll get back to your question. So is let's continue this, then I'll get back to your question. Alright? Did you get that, Arinze?
All right, sir.
Yeah, so that we don't have a break in our thought process on this solution. So at least everybody understand what's going on here. Now, let us call this guy. Remember, I told you I have a feeling I made a mistake here, a very strong feeling. So let's call console dot log whatever is there. Console log is students dot what evaluate, right? We are calling it. I'm not even supposed to do this. I don't even want this. Student dot evaluate, and let's see what it gives us. All right. So what is it giving us? Year of birth is not defined at object.evaluate, line 75. Year of birth is not defined at object.evaluate. What it means is this year of birth we're making reference to that is not defined here. The reason, in fact, let me even, it should have even mentioned name, but I'm using a reserved word. Let me say students. Let me say full name so that to complain about that too. Because he jumped that one and went to year of birth because this guy is kind of reserved. So if I refresh, he should complain about full name. Yeah. Full name is not defined at objects or at object or evaluate, line 74. So he's not complaining about this one first. Why is he complaining about it? Because that's where he met the first error. And remember, I told you I made a mistake here. Why? Because I'm making reference to something that's not defined. I'm making reference of this property of this guy, student.fullname. That's what it should have been. But then there's an issue. It has accepted it though, but there's an issue. Remember, there was a time I talked about this. So had it been this a regular function, this is one good case to use this because this will be making reference to this object calling the evaluate. But because I didn't use a regular function, I'll stick back to using this student.fullname. Alright? Now, if I also add this, I should get that error off the way. All things being equal. And the next one is student.score. Because I'm making reference to score and there is no I'm making reference to these things and there is no what's it called? Variable providing them apart from these guys. And if I want to access them, I need to make reference to the objects, not just the properties. Did whatever I said now make sense? Huh?
Yes, sir. I think it makes sense. It's correct now.
Alright. Hopefully it's correct. Hi Amarachi, good evening. Your age is 29 and your average score is 49.2. Does it make sense? So what it means
Yes,
is
sir.
this guy, when we call this guy, it evaluated this function first using the value of this student. Evaluated this one using this one, making calls to all of these guys, and also evaluated this. Now we've been able to make all of these guys reusable. I can have call this student 1 and say student 1 dot, and then I have another one, I call it student 2. Alright? And then I change the name to Arinze. Change the year of birth to 1984. And probably change some of these guys. Once I run this code and console log student 2, we are going to have different values. Though we are making use of the same function, but because we made it reusable, each instance of this guy is doing another thing. Student is not defined, so I think I'm making reference to. Yeah, this guy. So it's going to be student 1 now. Now let me do something too. So instead of actually using the students, I prefer to, this is one place where I think it's nice I use function. So I can say function this, I take out this guy. Now instead of saying students, I should make reference to this. What this is saying is make reference to the instance of the object calling this guy. Likewise this, I should make reference to this. If I save all things being equal, I should have my guy. Cannot be properties of undefined reading length at calculate average score. So length. Calculate. So it can't read this length. Probably because it's not getting this value test scores. So this does score. So why is it, where is it complaining about? Line 61, and then evaluates line 76. So line 76 is this guy. This does score. So why is this does score not defined? Hold on, let me do console.log scores. This does score. I'm probably making a mistake somewhere. Oh, it's undefined. Ah, you guys didn't tell me. I changed this one to regular function. I didn't change this one. Remember I told you arrow functions don't handle this correctly. So because JavaScript is allowing undefined to go for this one, it's only complaining because it's trying to read length of an undefined value in score. So let me change this to a regular function, and then all things being equal, it should, the error should go away. Yeah, the error has gone away. So what's it called? Arrow functions don't handle these instances correctly. They make reference to the object housing it. They don't generate their own instance of this. Unlike this one that's making reference to the student one, the object calling it. Alright? So did it make sense in any way? Guys?
Yes.
Alright.
Yes.
So because we made these guys reusable, we are not repeating them, we're only making calls. This, if you notice, is the exact code I copied. The only thing I changed was the values. I never touched these guys. If you notice, whatever is here, if I copy it, I can use it to replace whatever is here. I've removed this and I paste. If I save, I'll still get the same results, but different implementation. This one is saying, hi Amarachi, your age is 29, your average score is 49.2. This one is saying, hi Arinze, good evening, your age is 39 and your average score is. Same code but different results. Why? Because we made them reusable, and then we are feeding the values. We are tending to get the values from the parents. So depending on what these values is, we get this, guys. So does it make sense, guys?
Yes.
So I gave you guys one assignment, right?
Yes, sir.
Second assignment. If you like, do it. If you like, don't do it. Second assignment. I want you to create a user object that will have the user name, the user age, and the user gender. If the user is male, let the greeting be. Please take note of this assignment. Write it down if you need to. If the user is male, let the greeting be hi, blah blah blah. That's the name. Hi, the name. You're a guy. So let's say this function is supposed to check a user details and make a decision. If it's a guy, want to tell the person that your favorite color is blue. So hi Emeka, your favorite color is blue. And why are we deciding that Emeka's favorite color is blue? Because Emeka is a guy. If it's a lady, want to say hi Emeka, your favorite color is pink. It's very simple and straightforward. I don't want to make it complicated. I can add one more layer of complexity, right? And I say calculate their, let me get exactly what they call it. Is it BPI or what? Something index. I can't remember again. This weight index something. Body mass index. Yeah, I think that's it. BMI, yeah. Body mass index. Alright? So get the formula for this and calculate their BMI too. Body weight over height squared. Body, so weights in kg over height squared. This is the formula for it. So greet the person depending on whether they are male or female. You want to tell them your favorite color is whatever their color is, and then your weight body mass index is, you calculate their body mass index. Do we understand the assignment? Do we understand the assignment, guys?
Yes, sir.
Who doesn't understand the assignment? Alright, so I guess everyone understand. Okay, you understand the assignment, Blessing? In writing, you can write it as I'm saying, or maybe it's better I explain it and write it down how you understand it, because if I write it on the group I probably don't think I will explain it better to you. So I want you to have an object of a user like this one will have. The object is going to have the user weight, the user height, the user's gender. What do I want you to do? If the user is a male, return hi so and so. Your best color is, favorite color is blue. If it's female, say hi so and so, favorite color is pink. So if it's a male, hi so and so, favorite color is green, and your BMI is, you calculate their BMI. If it's female, hi favorite color is pink, and your BMI is whatever their BMI is. Does it make sense? Does it make sense, guys?
Yes, sir.
Alright, thank you. So, any questions? Any questions? In the absence of any other question, we'll call it a day. See you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m., not 7. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.